Reflecting on this past year, I'm really proud of this county council, in our nimbleness, our ability to be able to respond to this ever-changing pandemic crisis that was before us. And the reason why I'm so proud is because people stood up. You had everyday citizens who did everything they could imaginable to help their fellow man. They stood up and faced these unprecedented needs that were there in our community, and made it very clear that we all were one Montgomery. County government, community organizations, individuals helped to create countywide food hubs, ensuring that impacted communities had food on their table and other essential services. Our hubs that we have throughout the county did an amazing job of not only standing up initially what was food, but ended up being all the wraparound services that an individual might need to feel cared for, protected, and stood up. Our health initiatives in our communities of color and our health program took COVID-19 head on through critical outreach and support in COVID testing, setting up vaccination sites and appointments, and delivering services and resources to some of our communities most in need. We talked about the impacts on our communities of color, both from a health perspective as well as from an economic perspective. Many of us have seen it firsthand in our own families and our friend circles, and certainly ones in which we know that helping hand was not only needed, but made a difference in people's lives. There were so many giving, selfless acts that abounded here in Montgomery County, whether it was individuals creating their own homemade masks, as you heard before, or folks like the vaccine hunters or teenagers making sure that they could help vulnerable senior citizens and others secure very scarce vaccine appointments. The reality is that we came together, all of us, to make sure that the needs were met. And as chair of the Education and Culture Committee, it's obvious that MCPS and Montgomery College have been and remain critical partners in meeting the needs of our students and families, especially during this pandemic, pivoting and stepping up to provide free meal distribution sites, free Wi-Fi access, and outreach to support their various communities. Both of these entities rose during this occasion, during this pandemic, through their quick shift and creation of distance learning models that of course required new curriculum and training and logistical support to staff, students, and their families. But in addition, our one county site that was a statewide site for vaccinations was at our own Montgomery College in Germantown. Could we not be more proud of the great things that we've seen that have happened in our educational spaces? Of course, I'm proud of the continued commitment and prioritization of education and understand the value that our educational institutions bring. They are the basis of our success. We know it, whether it's economic development, whether it's public safety, whether it's workforce development, all of those things that we know are so important to our community start with education. And so I'm really proud to see that this year we fully funded both the MCPS and Montgomery College budget request. For MCPS, that meant providing additional supports to combat learning loss, investment in technology to ensure access to virtual learning, enhanced summer learning programming that many of us are taking advantage of right now, and additional provisions of mental health and social and emotional supports for both students and staff alike. For Montgomery College, it allows for no increase in tuition. And I again want to thank those great students who I met with who made it very clear that any single dollar of increase would be something that would be a challenge for students in this ever changing and ever challenging time. And so it also allowed for us to make sure that innovative workforce development training and accelerated courses were there for folks through the Montgomery College system. And of course, the continued partnership within MCPS and the county allowed us to make sure that Montgomery can code and the Innovation Hub move forward. I can't tell you how excited I am about what that potential holds for the relationship between Apple and Montgomery County. So both of our beloved institutions will say goodbye to their staunch, dedicated leaders this year. And really, we already thanked Dr. Jack Smith, our superintendent of Montgomery County Public Schools, and Dr. Darian Pollard, our president of Montgomery College, for their service and long-lasting impact they've made on not only their students, but on the residents of Montgomery County. But one of the things that I did want to say just in closing regarding Montgomery County Public Schools is that many of us who are parents, those of us who have children in the system, know that this was not easy. It was not an easy road for anyone, but one in which the leaders took it head on and tried to do the best we could with what we've had. The same thing that we did here on this council. And I really want to applaud the leadership, both the Board of Trustees for Montgomery College and the Board of Education, led by Ms. Brenda Wolf with Montgomery County Public Schools. You guys were amazing and really, truly continued to try and do everything that you could to ensure that everyone still had access to high quality levels of education. Now, this pandemic impacted our community in so many ways, but our arts community actually got hit especially hard. The stage went dark for over a year, and our artists and arts organizations suffered tremendously. Our county stepped into action to ensure grants were awarded so that our arts community could pay for their operating supports and just hang on. And I'm happy that we were able to fund the county executive's recommended Arts and Humanities Council budget and commit to finding additional ways to help them through continued economic recovery, including additional funds for our Public Arts Trust that we know means so much, not only to the artists, but to our greater community as a whole. I want to thank you, Mr. President, for your able leadership through this budget season. This hasn't been hard. This hasn't been easy. It's been incredibly hard. And I can tell you that being a former president, the job is tough in any year. But this certainly is one where it was incredibly challenging. And with so many moving parts, it was fortunate that you had the experience in dealing with Annapolis, that you had relationships at the federal level that helped to actually guide us through a lot of the deliberations that we had. I also want to thank my colleagues on the Education and Culture Committee, both Nancy Navarro and Will Juando, and just thank them for their hard work, their dedication, their continued support, but more importantly, their friendship. It is one of those things that I always touted in Annapolis and said that it was so great to have friends and have colleagues who had your back. That was something, and Council President Hucker knows all too well that we pride ourselves in Annapolis. I'm happy to say I have that here. You guys are family. So thank you. You know, it's times like this that getting through a pandemic can highlight your weaknesses or showcase your resiliency and strength. I knew I was going to lose it here. We're 7 days away from my chief of staff passing away 2 years ago. And when I think back and I look at what we've been able to accomplish, I always think to myself, what would Steve have said? What would he have said to evaluate what it was we did? Because Steve wasn't shy. You guys all know about talking about the council and what he thought that we should do as a whole, not just me. And I have to tell you that he'd be proud. He'd be proud of our community, proud of our residents, proud of each and every one of you, because we lifted ourselves up. We supported each other, and we got through this together. We not only proved how strong we each are in being able to stand up to this pandemic, but we also proved just how strong Montgomery County is. And so I thank each and every one of you. I thank my Chief of Staff, Sharon Ledner, Daniela Moya-Gaber, Rose Taylor, Kristen Tribble in my office. They are my agents of Quan, my reference to one of the favorite movies of all time. Thank you, Mr. President.